Okay, I'm Camila from Gondwana Brasil.
So welcome, Camila. I've had the pleasure to work with Camila and her company over the years and been inspired and mentored by her. And so I was excited to sit down and have a conversation with you just about how the industry is changing, how it's growing, which is a positive thing, but where growth and might have a negative impact, and how we as business owners and industry leaders need to be on the front side of those changes to make sure that it's positive. So I wanted to start out by asking if you think that the adventure travel industry has a distinct ethos, a value system that is unique to our industry, and if so, how does Gondwana Brasil fit into that?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a different ethos in the industry, and that stands for mainly what we care about developing our programs. We always include a set of values that are important for us, and of course that was inspired as well by the summit and the Adventure Travel Trade Association, and they are mainly the physical exposure. It's very important to have people doing action during their trips, and even if it's a short walk instead of a regular city tour or a biking trip. Of course, including local communities and local culture as well, either through gastronomy or art crafts or history. This is also a very important component. Of course, care for the environment as well. You educate people about the environment, the natural areas that we have, how they are important for our survival, and of course you care what you know normally. So this is also a very important value, and as well trying to have equity between what we do, what we gain, and how we give back to these communities and to our internal community, our employees, the people that work with us, and to this external community as well. And I think also is an industry that innovates a lot, is always thinking bigger, thinking bolder, as it was the topic of this summit. So I think these are the great ethos of the industry.
You mentioned local communities as an important part of what you feel like Gondwana Brasil has in terms of its mission. Can you give us an example of something that you do to make sure that when you bring visitors to a local community, that you feel like there's benefit, that this is good, positive for these people in the community?
We have worked to educate some local community to be our guides on the field. Of course, there's a big barrier, a language barrier. Most of our local communities, they don't speak any language apart from the Portuguese. So we have to bring a tour leader, normally from the town, that can do this bridge between local communities and the visitors. But for us, it's very important that they tell their own stories. It's not told by someone that's not from the place. We tend to always work with community-owned lodges whenever possible as well, and as well take them to local restaurants so they can try the food, the drinks. These are some of the things that we do to empower the local communities.
You mentioned one of the challenges being language barrier, and one of the ways that you work around that. What are some other challenges, or what makes potentially working with local partners more difficult? Still important, but what are some of those challenges that you have to overcome?
Some of the challenges are cultural differences, structure. For example, sometimes we know that we need to have at least a standard type of lodging, for example, for clients to be at, and sometimes it's not possible if a community has a big lack of investments from the government. Also, it's hard to Sometimes we need to educate people about tourism. So we tend to work with the government to get funds to do this, but we kind of have to do the whole institutional role as well most of the times. So it is kind of a big work, and also is a big we need to spend a lot of energy, money to do some of the work that needs to be done. So unfortunately, sometimes it's a matter of education. So people don't have basic education, so it's hard for them to create a business, to run a business, to understand the needs of the client. So it's a huge work that sometimes we need to do. But it's also challenging, and this is also very nice for us as well.
Tell me about, so that's a lot of work, and you've been building this business up for what, 10 years now?
15 years.
15 years that you've been doing this. And tell me about we're all excited that adventure travel is growing and people are excited to do it, and we're learned that 4 out of 10 people are choosing adventure activities on their trips. What are some of the risks that companies like yours that have been working for 10 years or 15 years to work in communities, is there any risks that you see that we as an industry need to tackle together of the growing industry?
Yeah, I wouldn't say as a risk. Maybe what it came to my mind is more of an issue. For me, as a small company, it's an issue of scale. I know it's important, at one hand, it's important to have a certain scale to be considered as someone that's making a difference locally. But on the other hand as well, sometimes when you grow a lot, it's hard to have your hands on the ground all the time and to be really close to the communities. So for me, it's just an issue of balancing growth and scale that both needs to be bigger, but also keep your grassroots. So for me, this is maybe the biggest issue that comes to my mind at this stage.
So being financially sustainable while still being able to maintain connection with your partners and the communities that are so important to you. The internal, as you said, your team, your guides, but also the other communities. What about, if you think about as more and more larger corporations or companies might be involved in this, is there a concern that they might work around some of this ethos that you've described, the investment in the local communities, the investment in your staff, into the guides? Is there any concern or examples where you've seen that be a problem?
Yeah, I think there is a risk of companies doing like a greenwash type of marketing when they actually say that they do, that they make a difference. But in the end, it's much more of a marketing tool than actually hands-on type of work. So I can see a lot of big adventure companies saying that they do a lot of things, and I know because with some of them we actually worked together and we saw that they drift at a certain point that numbers were more important than actually giving back. So this for me is something that is something that I saw really close to me. And also another thing that I think needs to be improved is this give back thing. For me is much more on an exchange type of culture that we need to build as companies than just giving back. Sometimes I think only giving a certain amount of giving back can be also tricky, because you can think that you've washed your hands and you've done your job, and for me it's much more than that. So also I think it's time now for a next step on this giving back type of attitude and action.
I learned a quote this week. We were both at the Adventure Travel World Summit here in Anchorage, and I learned a quote this week that authenticity needs to include ownership. And I think that's a key part of that, seeing eye to eye, working as partners, not as just philanthropy or charity, but actually seeing our local partners as partners, not as just part of a community and a product and something that we need to, as you said, wash our hands with when we feel like we've given enough. And so what you said inspires me based upon what I've already heard as well.
Definitely.
Anything else we do as an industry that you think can strengthen us as we grow?
Yeah. I think also we should start thinking about climate change. I actually missed this topic here in this summit, and I think we are on the place that this is very, very noticeable, if I can say that. So I think also we should start talking about the bad side of what we do. I think it's important. Not that we are going to focus on that, because of course I think that the good side of it is still much bigger, but I think we need to bring this to the conversation, at least to create awareness. It's otherwise we also think we are heroes, and I think also there are other topics that needs to be at least spoken, at least create awareness about also all these things that are not that good on regards of the industry.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for taking the time, and appreciate continuing to learn from you as your business continues to thrive and be leaders in the adventure travel industry.
Thank you very much.